the Ar-Adunaim, the only faction in Divide and Conquer where you can decide where you wish to start your conquest of Middle-earth. So I'm going to go and hop into this campaign and have a look at a couple of regions where you might want to give it a go, and perhaps you'll get some inspiration for a new campaign of your own. So this is the Ar-Adunaim start point. As we all know, on turn 1 you get 16 grand and a small increase there from your king's purse. You have 3 armies. You have Ar-Gimilcad, your faction leader, and as far as I know, this is always standard, and then this is slightly randomized. It doesn't really matter. You get a full banner army, and off you go. You, of course, have your trusty admiral here, Admiral Sackletor, that you can use as you wish, and then you get your diplomat, who is by the city of Umbar. And did you have a spy as well? Yes, you've got your spy over here by Ardumir as well. And from this point, you can go to a number of different locations. Now, the usual spot where you might be inclined to go would be to Umbar. It's the easiest place to get, as it's closest to you, but it does have a sizable garrison, but it is one of only 3 locations to have your culture in. It's got 15%, whereas Ardumir is at 10%, and I think Khaldun over there also has 10%. So you can absolutely just sail to Umbar. It will take you a couple of turns, and then on the end turn cycle, between the 3rd and the 4th turn, you'll get gifted this battle opportunity if you decide to cheese the siege, as I have done here, because otherwise it will take you a couple more turns to get the siege equipment, and it will be a reasonably difficult battle, but you should be able to win it fairly easily.
The enemy army flees the field. This is a clear victory. Good.
So, your results may vary, but I would then strongly suggest that you just occupy, because sacking won't give your horde a new home. Following that, of course, you then get the seat of power, and you started off with 16k, and now you've got a bit more, and you're making some actual money, so that's a pretty good start. Now, with your army then, I would go and take Ardumir and Khaldun, and unify this kind of province that you've got around here. This is actually a really safe location as well, because, like, who's going to come and attack you? Gondor's not going to come down here. Dol Amroth's not going to come down here either. Harad, they're probably going to focus on taking up rebel regions. You're not allied to them or anything like that, but they're not going to attack you whilst they're still at war with Gondor and folks like that. So they're going to focus up there. So that's going to give you plenty of time to focus on your own endeavours. I would recommend this starting location if you're new to the game, because it's a very secure starting location and you can make lots of money here. You've got gold here, you've got silver, you've got iron mines all in the surrounding province, so you can easily gather those things up. On top of that, Umbar has a unique building or semi-unique building that you can build, only you can build, and that is a tier for Port, the Black Haven, and the other counterpart is going to be a bit further north. Now, you also have the Ruins of the Pillar, which gives you some decent bonuses as well. But say on the first turn you were like, no, I'm not going to go to Umbar. Well, you're going to have a very, very long voyage anywhere else. Sackletor himself, he can, on his own, he can travel very far, but as soon as you pop in the army, it's going to be vastly reduced. Well, where else are you going to go? Well, let's begin with Dol Amroth. This is a good location if you are planning already on fighting Dol Amroth or Gondor. It is, however, quite difficult to actually take because it is a very well fortified fortress. Now, you'll get there on the 6th turn to actually besiege it, but I would very much advise that you do get a lot of ladders because they will get a garrison in there, and it's not so much the units that will cause you trouble, it will be the towers. They do get Gondor defenders, which aren't amazing, but compared to your units, they can cause you some trouble, and of course, Adrahil himself has Talon Knights.
We have triumphed.
So once you've then occupied the settlement, you have a standout capital for future expansion, and it's very safe because of it being a fortress. From here you can attack the Gondor coastline or just, take all of Dol Amroth. The choices are Quite nice, really. And you do have select buildings such as the Tirithar, so you can get a diplomat. On top of that, you do then also have access to the 4th tier of port, which not all factions can get, which is quite nice. And then also in Dol Amroth itself, you do also get an advanced blacksmith. So you're going to get even your elites with very, very high defense. The added bonus of having been at sea for a few more turns as well has given you a slightly bit more money to start off with. And whilst you can't actually train troops yet because you do not have the culture, you do have access to the conscription camp, so you can get some of these Gondorian folks to fight by your side. Perhaps you didn't want to go for Dol Amroth and instead you want to go for the Gondorians themselves, and you can go all the way up to Minas Tirith, and you might even get lucky and catch Steward Denethor unawares. Now, there will be a lot of Gondorian forces in the area because they are, of course, fighting Mordor already, but they get 6 units of Gondor defenders in their garrison, so you know, you might have a bit of a hard time there, but you do severely outnumber them still, and you have very powerful generals. As long as none of their armies show up as reinforcements, then I think you'll be absolutely fine in taking the settlement. Now, once you've ousted Denethor from the White Tower of Ecthelion and occupied the settlement, again, it's a pretty good settlement. You, of course, do have access to the diplomat there, and with the bonus of getting a Palantir, the Anor Stone is always very nice. Minas Tirith, just like Dol Amroth, you gain access to the Númenórean Foundry, the advanced blacksmith, so that is certainly very good. But you do not have the 4th tier of port that you would have in a select few other regions. But other than that, it's largely the same as Dol Amroth. However, with the notable exception that this is a huge city and not a fortress, so you'll have a much better time at accruing wealth here. But, I mean, when you get this settlement on turn 8, you won't have any trade connections, so all of that's kind of a moot point. And from here, you are, of course, completely surrounded by Gondor, and you will likely be their sole focus, which will allow Mordor to gain some power. But all in all, it's a pretty good spot to start, and of course I think in Izzy's campaign he did a recent one on the AA, and he also did this tactic. However, he was also forced then to later retreat down south, so it can be very tricky, perhaps deceivingly so. Okay, but let's move on to the next destination. So what about the Grey Havens? It's going to take you 17 turns to sail all the way up to Círdan's domain up here in Mythlond, and between the 17th and 18th turns you will gain a battle that you can potentially quite easily win, and you should win this. And we're going to talk about why you'd actually want to come up here. Well, first things first, you do have access to the advanced blacksmith. Again, that will help you immensely in the late game as well, and it's a wealthy settlement, you've got mines here, and you have access to the 4th tier of port here, the Haven, as opposed to the Black Haven that you had in Umbar. Wine is a very good resource, but of course right next to you in the Shire you do have access to the Hobbit farmstead resources, so they can potentially make you a lot of money. And you can even get a cheeky Palantir over in Undertowers. That is where the Elosthirian Stone is. It is also a very safe region. No one around you is all that powerful, aside from the fact that perhaps the dwarves of Eredluin will come and attack you, but the Shire folk and the clans of Enedwaith, they are pitifully weak, and they will provide you with no trouble at all. What if, though, you didn't want to go for the High Isles, but instead you wanted to go to Lothlorien? Well, in that case, you're going to have to go and sail up the Anduin. However, the game does not want you to be sailing up the Anduin for a couple of reasons. Of course, you can't actually get past the Osgiliaths, you can't sail at all between Caerandros and the Falls of Arauros, and you know, if you don't own a port, then that is going to block the way as you go further up the Anduin. However, you can kind of cheat move your fleet, of course, and play it off as well, we're great voyages, so it only makes sense that we can do these kinds of things. It's still going to take you 14 turns to make it to Lothlorien. But, you know, we're not going to show another elven settlement. even though it's a very good one. If you want to go full hipster, right, this is my hipster choice. You go further north, and you go and declare war on the Vale of Anduin, and you go and take Beorn's halls, and you'll make it to besiege that place on the 20th turn. Now, once again, if you are to cheese the siege, don't at me. I'm doing this purely for purposes of this video. You will then get this battle between the 20th and the 21st turns. Now, of course, the garrison here is subject to change depending on who they have in there, but you do have to watch out for Beorn because he is an absolute beast in melee and he will slaughter your generals if you're not careful, so you're going to have to use your missile units very effectively, but it should work out pretty well, and then you can occupy this region.
Our courage and honor have conquered.
So Beorn's Hall, why would you ever want to take this? It's only a large town. Well, yes, that is true, but, you know, you're not going to be getting all like your late game units immediately. Now, you do have about 40 turns until the barracks event, so it does mean that you do have to get a wriggle on, and the Vale of Anduin are no pushover in the early game because they are a Wildmen faction. They're going to get a lot of their, pretty much all of their roster, like a good chunk of their roster, very quickly, very easily, whereas you will be languishing, certainly in the beginning, until you get your culture up, because of course there is no culture here, so you're going to struggle on that. But there are a few things that you can do to work around that. Of course, you've got the auxiliary outpost here, because it is a mannish settlement. But aside from that, you've got the Carrick, which does give building cost reduction of 5%, and a nice public bonus to law, and of course then that is where you can get your diplomat, so always handy if you ever need another trade deal being secured. But this is a very varied starting location because, of course, I mean, how often do you use the AA to fight the Vale of Anduin? Very, you know, it's either very late campaign or whatever. You've just gone on a really weird trip. But from here, you can strike out against the Wood Elves of either Lothlorien or of Erun Garland up in the north. Or you can fight the Goblins of Moria. You can be a true neutral here. You can fight the Orcs of Gundabad. You can go to war with Kamul the Eastling in Dol Guldur. The options really are endless, and it's such an interesting spot for a campaign. Now that's kind of all the serious start positions that I would really recommend, but I did want to just go and have a look at how long it would take to go and take Faraday. You can absolutely do this, but it will take you absolutely ages, as I discovered. And this far into the campaign, you don't know quite what you're going to be facing in that garrison, so take this all with a grain of salt. However, Faraday is a pretty decent settlement, apart from a couple of things. So yes, I was interested to see that there's a Brawler's Hall here, so you can get your best infantry unit there. And you can get a Numenorian Foundry for your advanced blacksmith, but you can't get any of your militia here, of course, because it is inland. So I thought, oh, let's go and have a look down at Tarband, because of course you've got the Sea of Nirn. Perhaps they're going to have it there. But I had a look at the town hall, and no, you cannot. So I wouldn't really recommend coming down here at all.
Engage. An honorable, glorious victor.
Perhaps unfairly, I did say that there were no more serious options, but actually Tarband is a pretty solid one. It'll only take you 15 turns to go and capture that from game start, and you'll be up against the Dunlendings, which they're decent, but they shouldn't be much of a threat to you at this point, other than the fact that, again, you will struggle for culture. So putting yourself in between Bree and Dunland might be an issue for some. But here you can get the Bridge of Tarband upgraded, and it is one of the few Numenorian heritage sites where you can get some of your really, really good elites. And you can actually get your militia here, but just as a point of interest, I did go and have a look, and can you get them in Rivendell as well? And sadly, you cannot, even though there are like rivers there and whatnot. But you do get the upgraded or the advanced blacksmith there, however. So that is somewhat useful and would be the easiest one to get from this start position. And then how about one more final bonus one? So if you came and attacked Dale, it would take you until the 27th or so turn to make it over here. It would take absolutely incredibly long time. And, well, that is if you did the same route as I did for Beorn's Halls. Now, they would get some garrison here, but I would go for Escaroth over Dale because of the fact that it is... Oh, it does have a port, so you can actually get your militia here, which is very, very important in the early game. There is no chance of getting advanced blacksmith here. However, you can, of course, get the conscription camps here, and from the second tier you can get Iworthiadar horse guards, which do perform quite a good role in your armies, given the fact that you lack cavalry. But if you do want that advanced blacksmith, then Erebor is not too far away. So you'd have a tricky battle up against the dwarves, but by doing so, not only do you get a very good settlement there, you would get that upgraded armor.
A most noble conquest.
So I hope that you found this interesting. One thing I'd always look out for, though, is that you are able to actually recruit your militia tiers, because without that you're kind of screwed. So try and get somewhere where you can build ports. That would be my piece of advice. Other than that, have fun. Try and see if you can have some interesting conflicts with the new nations, and every single campaign can certainly feel different. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I'm Gandalf. Good